I stood in front of my boss's desk, heart racing and palms sweaty. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered slightly, casting a harsh glow on the room's sterile decor. My mind raced with 100 thoughts, but the words from my boss cut through the noise like a knife. "Yuki, we appreciate your hard work, but we have to make some changes. I'm afraid we have to let you go." The world around me faded for a moment. The clattering of keyboards and muffled conversations from the open office space beyond felt distant, as if I were submerged underwater. I had poured so much of myself into this job, and yet here I was, standing at the precipice of uncertainty. I felt a mix of relief and despair wash over me. Relief because the pressure of the corporate world had been suffocating, but despair because I had no idea what came next. "Thank you for the opportunity," I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. I forced a smile, but it felt brittle, like glass ready to shatter. My boss nodded, the kindness in his eyes not quite reaching the corners of his mouth. As I walked out of the office, my mind was a whirlwind. I took the elevator down to the ground floor, fighting back tears. Once outside, I inhaled deeply, breathing in the bustling air of Tokyo. The city felt both familiar and alien, a cacophony of sounds and colors that suddenly seemed overwhelming. I knew I needed to escape, to find a place where the noise was replaced with tranquility. That's when I remembered Hokkaido. I had always dreamed of visiting that serene island, known for its natural beauty and peaceful villages. Without thinking twice, I pulled out my phone and booked a train ticket. The thought of leaving the chaos behind filled me with a sense of hope. The train ride was a journey through breathtaking landscapes. As we sped along the tracks, I watched the city give way to sprawling fields and mountains, their peaks dusted with snow. The air grew crisper, and the vibrant greens of the countryside filled me with an unfamiliar sense of peace. When I arrived at the small train station in Hokkaido, I felt a wave of calm wash over me. The air was fresh, and the sounds of nature replaced the blaring horns and chatter of Tokyo. I stepped outside, taking in the beauty of the landscape. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves, and I could see distant mountains framing the horizon. "Welcome to Hokkaido," an elderly woman said as she approached me with a warm smile. She had a basket of flowers in her hands, and her eyes sparkled with kindness. "Thank you," I replied, my voice trembling slightly. "I'm Yuki. I just arrived. A newcomer. You must come for tea. We have a lovely community here," she said, gesturing for me to follow her. I hesitated for a moment, unsure if I should impose on a stranger, but the warmth of her invitation melted my reservations. As we walked, she shared stories about the village, her voice animated and filled with pride. I felt the weight of my worries beginning to lift, replaced by a sense of belonging. "Here in Hokkaido, we value community and friendship above all," she said, leading me into her cozy home. The aroma of freshly brewed tea filled the air, mixed with the scent of blooming flowers from her garden. "Please sit," she said, pouring tea into delicate cups. "Tell me about yourself." I took a sip and felt the warmth seep through me. "I lost my job in Tokyo," I admitted, feeling the vulnerability of my situation. "I needed a change." "Oh dear," she replied, her brow furrowing with concern. "But sometimes change brings good things. You'll see." As we chatted, I realized how much I longed for this connection, this sense of community that I had missed in the fast-paced world of Tokyo. It was as if I had stumbled upon a hidden treasure, a place where I could finally breathe and be myself. "Thank you for your kindness," I said, my heart swelling with gratitude. "I think I'm going to love it here." The elderly woman smiled, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a flicker of hope igniting within me. Perhaps Hokkaido was not just an escape. Perhaps it was the beginning of a new chapter in my life. As I wandered into the quiet village of Hokkaido, I was filled with a mix of hope and uncertainty. After being let go from my job in Tokyo, I had sought refuge here, away from the bustling city that had become suffocating. The tranquility of nature wrapped around me like a warm blanket, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of peace settle in. Little did I know that my journey would lead me to Tokushi, an old fisherman whose story was etched in the lines of his weathered face. I first saw Takashi while he was mending his fishing net outside his small shack by the shore. The sun was casting a golden hue over the water, but the sadness in his eyes seemed to darken the beauty around him. My heart ached at the sight. I approached him cautiously, not wanting to intrude on his solitude. "Excuse me, sir," I said softly, my voice barely rising above the sound of the waves. "Can I help you with that?" He looked up, surprise flickering across his face, quickly replaced by a guarded expression. "I don't need help," he replied tersely, his tone suggesting that he preferred to be alone. I smiled gently, undeterred. "I understand, but I'm new here and looking for ways to contribute. Please let me lend a hand." After a moment of hesitation, he sighed, the weight of his grief evident in the slump of his shoulders. "Fine. If you insist." I spent the next few hours helping him sort through the tangled nets and organize the catch of the day. As we worked side by side, an unexpected bond began to form. I learned that Takashi had once been a lively man, full of stories and laughter, but the loss of his wife had turned his world gray. "Her name was Aiko," he said, his voice barely above a whisper as he spoke about her. "She loved the sea just like I do. We spent our days fishing and dreaming of opening a restaurant together." My heart ached for him. "I'm so sorry for your loss, Takashi. It must be incredibly hard to navigate life without her." He nodded, his gaze distant as he reminisced. "It is. The sea feels empty without her laughter." In that moment I felt a surge of empathy. I too had been lost. My life in Tokyo felt like a distant memory, filled with stress and loneliness. "Maybe we can honor her memory together," I suggested tentatively. "What if we revitalized this place? I can help you make it a hub for the community again." For the first time, a flicker of interest sparked in his eyes. "You want to help me with my fish stall?" "Absolutely. Let's make it a welcoming place," I replied enthusiastically. "We can invite the villagers, share stories, and celebrate life." He studied me for a moment, as if weighing my sincerity. "All right, Yuki," he finally said, a hint of a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "Let's see what we can do." As the days passed, we developed a rhythm, working together to clean and organize the shack. I found joy in our shared labor, and Takashi slowly began to open up. Each evening, as we wrapped up our work, he would share more stories about Aiko and their dreams. I brought flowers from the fields one day to decorate the stall, and to my surprise, he smiled. A genuine smile that lit up his face for the first time since I'd met him. "Thank you, Yuki. These remind me of her garden," he said, his voice softening. I felt a warmth spread through me at his words. I realized that in helping Takashi, I was finding my own purpose again. The village was slowly becoming a part of me, and I was determined to help build a sense of community that Takashi had lost. One afternoon, as we cleaned up after a busy day, Takashi turned to me with a contemplative expression. "You remind me of Aiko, full of life and hope. Maybe I should have let her spirit guide me sooner." His admission touched me deeply. "You have so much to offer, Takashi. Together, we can create a place where memories are made and shared." In that moment, I understood that this journey was not just about helping Takashi. It was about rediscovering myself through the bonds we formed and the lives we touched. I was learning that love, resilience, and community could heal even the deepest wounds. As I worked alongside Takashi, the old fisherman, I felt a sense of purpose blossoming within me. Each morning, I would arrive at his small fish stall, the salty sea air filling my lungs, and the sun rising gently over the horizon. Takashi was a man of few words, but the wisdom in his eyes spoke volumes. As I learned to clean and prepare fresh fish, I couldn't help but ask him about his life. "Takashi," I began one day, my hands busy with the catch of the morning, "what was it like when you were young? Did you always want to be a fisherman?" He paused, his hands stilling for a moment before he replied, "I was born into this life, Yuki. My father taught me the ways of the sea. But..." He trailed off, looking out at the waves crashing against the shore. "My wife loved to cook. She had a way with flavors that brought people together. After she passed, it became harder to find joy in my work. His words struck me, and I felt a pang of empathy for the man. "I'm so sorry, Takashi. It must have been incredibly difficult." "It was," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "But your presence here, it reminds me of her. You bring life back into this place." Encouraged by his words, I decided to bring a little brightness to our days. The next morning, I picked wildflowers from the fields and arranged them in a small vase I'd found. When I placed the flowers on the counter of the stall, Takashi looked up, his eyes widening in surprise. "What is this?" he asked, a hint of a smile breaking through his usually solemn demeanor. "There for you," I said, a grin spreading across my face. "To brighten up the stall." He chuckled softly, the sound warming my heart. "You have a kind spirit, Yuki. I appreciate this." As the days passed, I felt our bond growing stronger. We shared stories, laughter, and even silence, which somehow felt comforting. One afternoon, as we sat on the wooden bench outside the stall, I suggested, "What if we organized a small fishing event for the villagers? It could celebrate our community and the beauty of the sea." Takashi's eyebrows furrowed in thought. "An event? But what if no one comes?" I took a deep breath, hoping to inspire him. People love to gather to share stories and food. We could create a day where everyone comes together to fish, share recipes, and enjoy what we have. He looked at me, surprise evident in his gaze. "You believe we can bring them together?" "Absolutely," I replied, my excitement bubbling over. "We can create something beautiful here, just like your wife would have wanted." After some hesitation, Takashi nodded slowly. "If you are willing to lead this, I will support you." With a determined heart, I set out to spread the word. I visited neighbors, inviting them to join us for the fishing event. To my delight, the response was overwhelmingly positive. As the day approached, I could sense a shift in Takashi. He began to smile more, and I could see the spark of life returning to his eyes. On the day of the event, the village came alive. Children laughed and played by the shore, while adults set up makeshift stalls filled with fresh fish and homemade dishes. Takashi and I worked side by side, feeling the energy of the community around us. "Look at them," I said, my heart swelling with joy. "This is what it means to be connected." Takashi nodded, a smile gracing his lips. "You were right, Yuki. This is beautiful." As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the sea, I felt a profound sense of belonging. I realized that in helping Takashi, I was also healing myself. The relationships we were forging were teaching me the true essence of life: love, resilience, and community. In that moment, I knew I had not only found a friend in Takashi, but also a home in this village, where life was meant to be celebrated together. As the sun began to set over the serene village of Hokkaido, I felt a sense of calm that had eluded me in the bustling streets of Tokyo. It was during the village's fishing event that I first met Hana, a young woman whose eyes sparkled with ambition yet were clouded by insecurity. As we worked side by side, I sensed a connection between us, a shared understanding of the struggles we faced in pursuing our dreams. "Hana," I started, trying to break the ice as we cleaned up after the event. "What do you dream of doing?" Her gaze fell to the ground, and she hesitated. "I want to open my own restaurant," she finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I'm afraid of failing." I could feel a pang of empathy in my chest. I had been there, standing on the precipice of my own dreams, paralyzed by the fear of what could go wrong. "I understand that fear," I said gently. "But what if we work together? We could create something wonderful for the village, something that celebrates our culture through food." Her eyes widened, a flicker of hope igniting within them. "You really think so? Do you think the villagers would support us?" "Absolutely. We've already seen how much they love coming together for events. Imagine a culinary festival where everyone shares their recipes, their stories. It could be an incredible celebration of our community." As I spoke, I could see her confidence beginning to build. "That could be amazing," she said, a smile breaking through her initial doubts. "I've always wanted to share my family's recipes, but I didn't know how to start." "Let's start planning," I exclaimed, feeling the excitement bubble within me. "We can enlist the help of the villagers. With Takashi's fish and your family recipes, we'll have a fantastic foundation." Over the next few days, Hannah and I poured ourselves into the preparations for our culinary event. We roamed the village, chatting with the locals, gathering stories and recipes, and inviting everyone to participate. Each conversation revealed more about the rich tapestry of our community, and I felt a deepening bond not only with Hannah but with the villagers who welcomed us with open arms. One afternoon, as we sat under a cherry blossom tree, I looked at Hannah and asked, "What kind of atmosphere do you envision for the event?" She pondered for a moment, her brow furrowed. "I want it to feel warm and inviting, like a family gathering. Food brings people together, right?" "Exactly. We can decorate with flowers, set up tables in the village square, and have music playing in the background. It'll be a celebration of our culture and connections." As we brainstormed, I could see Hannah's excitement grow. "I want to make my grandmother's special miso soup. It's a family tradition, and I think it would resonate with everyone here." "That sounds perfect," I replied, thrilled to see her enthusiasm. "Let's make sure it's a highlight of the event." As the days turned into weeks, our plans began to take shape. We gathered ingredients, tested recipes in the cozy kitchen of my new home, and laughed together as we attempted to recreate the dishes we both cherished. Hannah's laughter was infectious, and with each shared moment, I felt my own spirit lifting. One evening, after a long day of preparation, Hannah turned to me with a serious expression. "Yuki, what if no one comes? What if it's a disaster?" I placed my hand on hers, feeling the warmth and the pulse of her anxiety. "What matters most is that we're creating something together. Even if it doesn't go as planned, we'll have learned so much, and we'll have each other." Her eyes softened, and I could see the doubt slowly melting away. "You're right. It's about the community, about sharing our love for food and each other." As we continued to plan, I couldn't help but reflect on how much this journey had changed me. I had come to Hokkaido searching for refuge, and now I was finding purpose in the connections I was forging. Hannah and I were no longer just two women with dreams. We were becoming a team, a part of something greater than ourselves. With every passing day, the excitement for our culinary event grew. I felt a sense of belonging I had never experienced before, a realization that success wasn't just about personal achievements but about the relationships we built and the impact we had on one another's lives. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the village of Hokkaido, Hannah and I gathered at the local community center, a quaint wooden building that had seen better days but was filled with laughter and chatter. The excitement in the air was palpable as we prepared for our upcoming culinary event. It was a dream we had nurtured together, a celebration of our village's rich culinary heritage, and I was determined to make it a success. "Hannah, do you think we have everything we need?" I asked, nervously glancing at the list of ingredients we had compiled. We had decided to showcase traditional dishes, and the pressure weighed heavily on my shoulders. Hannah bit her lip, her eyes darting around the room. "I hope so, Yuki. I can't shake this fear that no one will show up or that they won't like our food," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You're an incredible cook, Hannah. This community loves food, and they will appreciate the effort we're putting into this. Remember, we're doing this together." She nodded, but I could see the uncertainty still clouding her expression. The truth was, I understood her fears all too well. When I first arrived in this village, I felt like an outsider, adrift and unsure. But with each passing day, I had come to realize that it was the connections we forged that truly mattered. As the evening progressed, we set about organizing our plans. We gathered a group of villagers who were eager to lend a hand. They buzzed with excitement, sharing their own recipes and anecdotes from their kitchens. It was heartwarming to see how everyone rallied around our idea, but I could still sense Hannah's hesitation. "Why don't we have a practice run? We can invite a few neighbors to taste our dishes and give us feedback, I suggested, hoping to ease her worries. That's a great idea. But what if they don't like it? Hannah asked, her voice trembling slightly. I took a deep breath, recalling my own insecurities when I first arrived here. Hannah, everyone here eats together, shares meals, and supports each other. If they don't like something, they'll tell us kindly, and we can improve. That's how we learn. She sighed, a small smile breaking through her anxious facade. Let's do it. I trust you, Yuki. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. Hannah and I spent long hours in the kitchen, testing recipes and refining them. We laughed over our blunders and celebrated our victories. One evening, as we prepared a batch of miso soup, I accidentally spilled a bit too much miso paste into the pot. Oops. We might have the world's saltiest soup on our hands, I joked, trying to lighten the mood. Hannah burst into laughter, the sound ringing like music in the air. Well, if all else fails, we can serve it as a salt lick. As we continued to experiment with flavors, I could see Hannah's confidence start to blossom. We shared stories of our dreams and aspirations while chopping vegetables and stirring pots. I opened up about my own struggles in Tokyo, how I had felt lost and unfulfilled, and how this little village had started to feel like home. I used to think success was about climbing the corporate ladder and making a name for myself, I confessed. But now I realize it's about the connections we make and the joy we share. That's what truly matters. Hannah looked at me thoughtfully. You're right, Yuki. I've been so focused on my fears that I forgot why I wanted to open a restaurant in the first place. It's about creating a space where people can come together, share food, and make memories. As the days passed, our practice run approached. We invited a small group of neighbors for a tasting, and I felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. Would they embrace our dishes? Would Hannah feel proud of her creations? On the day of the tasting, we set the table with care, arranging everything beautifully. The moment our neighbors arrived, I felt a rush of warmth. They were eager to help and offered their own dishes to share. As we served our creations, I could see the joy on their faces as they savored each bite. One elderly villager, Mrs. Soto, smiled broadly after tasting our miso soup. This reminds me of my youth. You girls have done wonderfully. Hannah's eyes sparkled with delight, and I felt a surge of pride for both of us. As the evening unfolded, laughter filled the room, and we shared stories and dreams over plates of food. In that moment, I realized that our culinary event was more than just about food. It was about building connections and nurturing a sense of belonging. Hannah's fears began to fade, replaced by a sense of purpose and excitement. Thank you for believing in this, Yuki, she said softly as we cleaned up after our tasting. I smiled back at her, feeling a newfound strength within myself. Thank you for dreaming with me, Hannah. Together, we're creating something beautiful. As the sun began to rise over the tranquil village of Hokkaido, I felt a flutter of anticipation in my chest. Today marked the beginning of something new. A chance to connect with the children of this community through the English lessons I had decided to offer. I had always loved teaching, but the thought of standing in front of a group of eager young faces was a little daunting. Nevertheless, the warmth I had received from the villagers made me feel welcomed, and I was determined to give back in any way I could. I arrived at the small community center, a charming wooden building adorned with colorful flower pots. As I opened the door, the laughter of children echoed within, and I was greeted by a chorus of excited voices. Yuki! Yuki! They cheered, their eyes shining with curiosity. It was a sweet reminder of how far I had come from the fast-paced life of Tokyo, where I often felt invisible amidst the crowd. Good morning, everyone, I smiled, waving at them. Are you ready to learn some English today? Yes, they chorused, their enthusiasm infectious. I felt the weight of my worries lift as I began to set up the classroom. I had prepared colorful flashcards and fun games to make learning enjoyable. As the class started, I introduced myself, sharing bits about my life in Tokyo and how I ended up here. I used to work in a big city, but I wanted to find a place where I could feel at home, I explained. And now I'm here with all of you. One little boy named Kenji raised his hand. "Do you miss Tokyo?" he asked, his brow furrowed in concern. I paused for a moment, reflecting on my feelings. "Sometimes, yes," I admitted. "But I think I've found something special here. It's the friendships I've made that make me happy." As I taught them basic greetings and vocabulary, I was amazed by their eagerness to learn. They repeated words after me with bright smiles, their laughter filling the room. "Let's practice saying hello." I encouraged them, and we all shouted in unison, "Hello." During a break, the children huddled around me, eager to share their own stories. "I went fishing with my grandpa," one girl exclaimed, her eyes sparkling. "And I caught a big fish." "Wow, that's impressive," I replied, genuinely intrigued. "What did you do with it?" "We cooked it together." "It was delicious," she beamed, and I could see the pride in her eyes. In that moment, I felt a deep connection forming. These children were not just my students. They were a part of this vibrant community that had welcomed me with open arms. I wanted to learn from them just as much as they were learning from me. As the lessons continued, I introduced simple songs in English. "Let's sing head, shoulders, knees, and toes," I announced, and the room erupted with laughter as we all moved around, pointing to our body parts. They giggled at my attempts to keep up with their energy, and I couldn't help but join in their merriment. After class, one of the children, a shy girl named Aiko, approached me hesitantly. "Yuki-sensei," she said softly, "can you teach me more English? I want to talk to my cousin in America." "Of course, Aiko," I replied, my heart swelling with joy. "We can have extra lessons together. I'd love to help you." Her face lit up, and I knew that teaching her would also help me grow. "Thank you, Yuki-sensei," she exclaimed, and I felt a sense of fulfillment wash over me. As I walked home that evening, the sun setting in a palette of oranges and pinks, I reflected on my day. I had not only taught English but had also learned about the strength of community and the importance of connection. These children, with their dreams and stories, were teaching me just as much as I was teaching them. I felt a renewed sense of purpose, realizing that the true success I had been seeking was not in a corporate office but in moments like these, where laughter, learning, and love intertwined. The day of the culinary event dawned bright and lively. I felt a mix of excitement and nerves as I stepped out of my small home, the aroma of fresh flowers mingling with the scent of the sea in the air. I had worked so hard to prepare for this moment alongside Hana and Takashi, and now it was finally here. As I walked toward the community center where the event would take place, I could hear laughter and chatter, the sound of the village coming alive. "Yuki, over here." Hana waved enthusiastically, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. She was wearing a colorful apron, flour dusted on her cheeks, which made her look both adorable and determined. "Hey, Hana," I smiled back, joining her. "Are you ready for this?" "I think so. I've never done anything like this before." She bit her lip, glancing around nervously at the other villagers setting up their stalls. "What if no one likes our dish?" I placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We've worked hard and we have each other. That's what matters. Besides, we're celebrating our community and our traditions. It's not just about winning." "You're right," she said, taking a deep breath. "Let's make this a celebration to remember." As we began setting up our booth, I felt the energy of the village enveloping us. Children scampered about, helping their parents, elders shared stories, and laughter echoed in the air. It was a perfect day for a culinary competition, and the spirit of camaraderie was palpable. Once everything was in place, the event kicked off with the village head announcing the rules. "Welcome, everyone. Today we celebrate our culinary heritage. Let's showcase our best dishes, not just to compete, but to share a piece of our hearts with one another." The crowd erupted in cheers, and I felt my heart swell with pride. As the competition began, I watched as various villagers presented their dishes, each one more creative than the last. But then, something unexpected happened. A rivalry erupted between two participants, both renowned for their cooking. "Did you see that?" Hannah whispered to me, her eyes wide. They're glaring at each other like they're about to battle it out. I know. But we can't let that ruin our event, I replied, feeling a surge of determination. I'll talk to them. I approached the two, a middle-aged woman known for her spicy fish stew and a younger man famous for his grilled squid. Excuse me, I said, stepping in between them. This is a celebration, not a fight. Let's remember why we're here. The woman crossed her arms. But he thinks his dish is better than mine. And I think hers is just too bland, the man shot back. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice calm. Look, both of you are incredibly talented. Why don't we put our energy into making this a great event instead? Imagine how wonderful it would be to share your dishes side by side, to show everyone the variety we have in our village. They exchanged glances and slowly, I saw the tension begin to dissolve. Maybe you're right, the woman conceded. We should be celebrating, not competing. Yeah, the man nodded. Let's show everyone what we can do together. I felt a wave of relief wash over me as they shook hands, their rivalry set aside for the greater good of the community. I returned to Hannah, who looked at me with admiration. You did it, she exclaimed. Just doing my part to keep the peace, I said with a grin. Now let's focus on our dish. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the event, I felt a sense of unity and warmth enveloping us. The villagers came together, sharing stories, laughter, and of course food. When it was time to present our dish, Hannah and I stood side by side, our hearts pounding. What if we mess up? She whispered, her voice trembling. We won't. Just remember, it's about sharing our story, I reassured her, squeezing her hand. As we presented our dish, a traditional recipe with a twist, I looked out at the faces of our neighbors, feeling a deep connection to each one. This dish represents our journey together, I said, my voice steady. It's about friendship, community, and the flavors that bring us together. The applause that followed made my heart race, and I could see Hannah beaming with pride. In that moment, I realized that the true essence of this event went far beyond the competition. It was about the bonds we forged, the love we shared, and the dreams we dared to pursue together. The day of the gastronomic event had finally arrived, and the air in the village was electric with excitement. I stood at the edge of the bustling square, taking in the vibrant decorations that adorned every stall. Colorful banners flapped in the gentle breeze, and the enticing aroma of grilled fish mingled with the scent of freshly baked bread. My heart raced with anticipation as I prepared to share my culinary creations with the community that had become my family. Yuki, over here. Hannah's voice broke through my thoughts. She waved enthusiastically from a nearby stall, her face glowing with excitement. I hurried over, my pulse quickening at the sight of her. Look at all this, she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling as she gestured to the array of dishes laid out before us. I can't believe we pulled this together. I know. It feels like a dream, I replied, my voice barely above a whisper as I took in the scene. The villagers had come together in a way I had never seen before, each one contributing their own special dish, a testament to our shared culture. As the event kicked off, the atmosphere shifted to one of celebration. Music filled the air, and laughter echoed as families and friends gathered. I took a moment to appreciate the beauty of it all, the way the sun cast a warm glow on the faces of the people I had grown to love. Everyone, I called out, my voice trembling with excitement. Today, we celebrate not just our food but the community that brings us together. The crowd cheered, and I noticed Takashi standing at the back, his eyes glistening with emotion. He had always been a man of few words, but today, I could see how deeply he felt the spirit of the occasion. I smiled at him, grateful for the friendship that had blossomed between us. As the competition commenced, participants began presenting their dishes. Hannah and I stood side by side, our hearts racing as we prepared to showcase our culinary creations. You ready? I asked her, sensing her nerves. I think so, but what if they don't like it? She replied, biting her lip. Just remember, it's not about winning. It's about sharing our culture and our love for food, I encouraged gently, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. We took turns presenting our dishes, and as I served my spicy grilled fish, I felt a rush of pride. The villagers gathered around, eager to taste what we had made. "This is delicious," a woman exclaimed, her eyes lighting up with delight. The warmth of their appreciation filled my heart with joy. But then, I noticed a tension brewing near one of the stalls. Two competitors, both fierce in their culinary skills, began exchanging heated words. "I can't believe you think your dish is better than mine," one shouted. I felt a pang of anxiety at the thought of discord overshadowing our celebration. "Hannah, we should intervene," I said, glancing at her with concern. "Do you think it's a good idea?" she asked hesitantly. "We can't let this ruin the event," I insisted, determination rising within me. "Let's show them that we're all here to celebrate together." As we approached, I cleared my throat. "Excuse me, everyone," called out, my voice steady. "I know how passionate we all are about our dishes, but today is about unity. Let's remember that we're all part of this beautiful community." The crowd fell silent, and I took a deep breath. Food brings us together, and it's the love we share that truly matters. Why don't we all taste each other's creations and celebrate the flavors of our village? Slowly, the tension began to dissipate. One of the competitors nodded, a sheepish smile breaking across her face. "You're right. I'm sorry for letting my pride get in the way." With that, the atmosphere lightened, and laughter began to ripple through the crowd once more. As we all gathered to sample each other's dishes, I felt a profound sense of belonging wash over me. Later, as the sun began to set, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, Takashi stepped forward, clearing his throat. "I would like to share a recipe that my late wife taught me," he said, his voice steady despite the emotion behind it. The crowd fell silent, listening intently. He began to describe a traditional dish, his eyes filled with nostalgia. "This recipe has been in my family for generations. It's not just food. It's a reminder of love and togetherness." His words resonated deeply, bridging the past and present, binding us all together in that shared moment. When he finished, the applause was thunderous. I could see tears in the eyes of many villagers as they grasped the depth of his words. Hannah squeezed my hand, her eyes shining with inspiration. "This is what community feels like," she whispered. In that moment, I knew we had created something beautiful together. The event was more than just a competition. It was a celebration of our lives, our stories, and our dreams. As I looked around at the smiling faces, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought me here. I was part of something greater, a family forged through love, resilience, and shared dreams. The sun dipped low in the sky, painting the horizon in shades of orange and purple as I stood in front of my cozy little cottage. The vibrant sounds of laughter and music from the village celebration echoed in the distance, but my heart felt heavy with uncertainty. Just moments ago, I had received a call that threatened to upend everything I had come to cherish in this beautiful village of Hokkaido. "Yuki, it's me," the voice on the other end had said, a familiar tone that stirred something deep within me. "We have an opportunity for you back at the office. A new position has opened up, and we think you'd be perfect for it." As those words sank in, a whirlwind of emotions rushed through me. I had left the chaos of Tokyo behind, seeking solace and a sense of belonging in this quiet place. The warmth of the villagers, the gentle waves of the sea, and the bond one had formed with Takashi and Hannah filled my heart with a joy I hadn't known in years. Yet, the prospect of returning to my old life, a life that had brought me nothing but stress and dissatisfaction, beckoned like a siren's song. I took a deep breath and replied, "Thank you for considering me, but I need some time to think it over." As I hung up, the weight of my decision pressed down on me like a thick fog. I wandered outside, my mind racing. The laughter of children playing nearby and the enticing aroma of food from the festival momentarily distracted me. But as I walked toward the commotion, I felt a gnawing anxiety in my chest. "Yuki!" Hannah's voice rang out, pulling me from my thoughts. She rushed over, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Did you see the decorations? Everyone is so thrilled." It's going to be the best celebration yet. I forced a smile, trying to match her enthusiasm. Yes, it looks amazing, I managed to say, but my words felt hollow. How could I revel in the joy of the moment when my heart was torn in two? She seemed to notice my change in demeanor. What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. I hesitated, the weight of my secret heavy on my tongue. I just received a call about a job offer back in Tokyo. They want me to come back. Hannah's expression shifted, her smile faltering. Oh, you see. But you love it here, don't you? I do, I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. But what if I'm making a mistake? What if I should take this opportunity? Maybe it's a sign that I should go back to what I was doing. Yuki, you're not the same person you were when you left, she said firmly, placing her hand on my shoulder. You've found a home here. You've built connections, and you've helped so many people, including me. What will it mean if you go back? Her words struck a chord deep within me. I thought of Takashi, his gentle spirit, and the way he had opened up to me since we started working together. I thought of the laughter of the children in my English class, and the sense of purpose I had found in teaching them. I had uncovered a part of myself that I thought was lost forever. I just don't want to regret my decision, I confessed, my voice trembling. What if I choose to stay and it doesn't work out? What if I never achieve anything again? Regret. That's something you'll carry no matter what you choose, she replied, her voice steady and kind. But think about the joy you've brought to the village, the connections you've made. You've found a community here that truly cares about you, and you care about them. Isn't that worth something? As she spoke, I felt the warmth of her words wrap around me like a comforting blanket. My heart ached with the thought of leaving this place behind, of missing the laughter, the stories, and the love that had blossomed in this little corner of the world. You're right, I finally said, my voice stronger now. I've been so focused on what I might be missing that I forgot to appreciate what I have right in front of me. Hannah beamed, relief washing over her features. So, what will you do? I'll stay, I declared, a newfound determination filling my heart. I'll stay, and I'll embrace this life fully. I want to continue helping Takashi, supporting you, and being part of this beautiful community. Good, she exclaimed, pulling me into a warm hug. Now come on. The festival is waiting for us. As we made our way toward the celebration, I felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. The laughter and music enveloped me, and I knew without a doubt that I had made the right choice. Here in Hokkaido I had found my true self, a self that thrived on connection, purpose, and love. As I stood in the vibrant village square, the aftermath of the culinary event still buzzing in my ears, my heart raced with an exhilarating mix of joy and uncertainty. The laughter of the villagers echoed around me, and the aroma of delicious food lingered in the air. I had never felt so alive, so connected to a community that embraced me with open arms. But as I turned to leave, my phone buzzed in my pocket, pulling me back to the reality I had tried to leave behind. Yuki, I have some news for you. My old boss's voice crackled through the receiver. We have a position opening up, and I wanted to know if you'd consider coming back to Tokyo. My heart sank. The very city I had fled from, seeking solace in this serene village, was now calling me back. I need some time to think, I stammered, my voice barely above a whisper. Of course, take your time, he said, oblivious to the turmoil brewing inside me. I hung up, the weight of the world crashing down on my shoulders. Would I really leave this place? The thought made my stomach twist in knots. Just then, I spotted Takashi sitting by the edge of the square, his weathered hands resting on his fishing net. He looked up at me, and I could see the warmth in his eyes, a stark contrast to the cold grip of doubt that had taken hold of my heart. Yuki, is everything all right? He asked, his voice gentle yet filled with concern. I sighed, onto the bench beside him. I got a call from Tokyo. They want me back for a job. Takashi's expression shifted, a hint of sadness crossing his face. You have built something beautiful here. The village, the friendships. Are you willing to leave it all behind? I stared at the ground, the cobblestones blurring as tears threatened to spill. I don't know, Takashi. I thought this was my chance to find happiness, but now, feel torn. What if I go back and everything stays the same? What if I fail here without a job? He placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. Success is not measured by a salary, Yuki. It is about where your heart finds peace. You've brought life back to my little fish stall, and you've inspired Hana. This village has become your family. His words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. I had poured my heart into this place, and it felt like a part of me belonged here. Just then I heard laughter and turned to see Hana approaching, her face radiant with excitement, her eyes sparkling with a newfound determination. "Yuki, you won't believe what just happened," she exclaimed, practically bouncing on her heels. One of the judges from the competition, the one who seemed so tough, turned out to be a famous chef in disguise. "She loved our event and wants to help me open my restaurant." My heart leaped at the news. "Really? That's incredible, Hana." "Yes. She said she was so impressed with our passion for food and community that she wants to mentor me. This could be the opportunity I've always dreamed of." Her enthusiasm was infectious, and for a moment my worries felt lighter. "But what about you, Yuki?" she asked, her brow furrowing slightly. "Are you okay? You seemed a bit off earlier." I took a deep breath, contemplating my next words. "I received an offer to return to Tokyo. I'm just trying to figure out what I want." Hana stepped closer, her expression earnest. "You belong here, Yuki. You've changed my life and the lives of everyone in this village. You've shown us what it means to dream together." Just then, the previously stern judge, now revealed as a renowned chef, approached us with a warm smile. "I couldn't help but overhear your conversation. Yuki, I must say your contribution to the event was remarkable. You have a gift for bringing people together." I blinked, surprised. "Thank you, but I didn't expect to have such an impact." "You did," she affirmed. "And I'd like to offer you an opportunity as well. I believe you have the passion and creativity to work alongside Hana in her new restaurant. You could help infuse it with the spirit of this village." I felt a surge of hope blossom within me. The thought of staying here, helping Hana, and being a part of this community filled me with a warmth I hadn't felt in a long time. "Are you serious? That sounds amazing." "Absolutely," she replied, her eyes twinkling with excitement. "Together, you two can create something extraordinary." I glanced at Takashi, who nodded encouragingly, and then back at Hana, whose face was lit with dreams finally within reach. In that moment, I realized that my heart had already chosen. "I want to stay," I said, my voice steady. "This is where I belong." As the village celebrated around us, I embraced the reality that I had found my home, my family, and my purpose. I looked up at the horizon, the sun setting in hues of gold and crimson, promising that this was just the beginning of our journey together.